Your metrics tell the whole story. Factors like weather, economic trends, and global events affect your results. In this video, we'll show you how Dataslayer lets you integrate external variables into your analyses so you can make smarter decisions. Let's find out. Today we're going to work a bit more with Morpheus, our dear friend from Marketing 9th Modeling. Alright, today we're really going to focus on what contextual variables are. Why? Because imagine that your e-commerce sales drop sometimes, and we think it's the strategy. It could be, is it the budget issue? Could it be the weather? Could it be some other factor? Of course, anything can be the case in this aspect. Well, in this case, what we're going to focus on is that with Dataslayer, we can add relevant external variables directly to our phenomenon, like weather, patterns, meteorological data, etc. And that's what we're going to see. Alright, first we're going to open Morpheus and import some data. In this case, we're going to import a CSV that we already have prepared, which is this one here. I'm going to move on. To this step, I'm not going to go too fast. I'm going to go a bit faster because we've already worked on this in other videos. Just select files, we select the weather data. The KPI we're interested in is basically the total sales across media channels. Very important. Here, I'm going to pause a bit more, especially since in media, let's try to include the things we've actually spent money on, like Facebook ads, Google ads, television, radio, and print, for example. And for contextual variables, okay, so what do we include? For example, holiday data. It's important not to forget to include the country, so we're going to put Spain in this case. For the weather data, we can select all of them. And let's not forget to include the city, so in this case, we're going to put Barcelona. And finally, if we want to include any other factors that might influence us more, in this case, we don't have any, but we could, for example, include things like Facebook ad spending, which would be a medium, or maybe the conversions from Facebook ads, which would be the KPI, and then there are clicks or impressions from Facebook, which would be something contextual. All right, once we've done this, let's go here. Click on Finish, and it starts. Loading this up, and now we have our value and information loaded here. All right, now what we're going to do is train this model, okay? For this case, what I'm going to do is set it to the longest option so that we get the best information, even though the quick option would give us that too. But since it's just 3, 6, or 10 minutes, we're not going to wait. I'm just going to click here, enter the model, and I'll be back once the model is ready. All right, we're back. Once the model is trained, let's do a quick review, okay? On one side, we see the current media mix where it will show us how much we've spent on each of the things, as well as these graphs that are loading now. And we're going to go over them now. Okay, and we'll look at this point in particular. We'll focus today on this part about non-mediative contribution. All right, let's wait a second. All right, so we have here where it tells us that it's more or less, well, a pretty fair distribution, right? More or less 21% for radio, 22% for Google ads, 19% for each of the others. So it's almost same across the board. I mean, we can pretty much calculate it the same. However, we see that at the level of effect, it's not the same, okay? In fact, remember, I'm reminding you that radio, the ones that have contributed the most are radio and Google ads with 21%, and yet they are the ones that have had the least impact on sales. Coincidentally, the two that have contributed the most have had the least effect, and the other three are right here. What else can we see in this case? Let's get to what we're focusing on, the non-mediative contribution, okay? What is this non-mediative contribution? Just to let you know, work is being done on improving these graphs. We'll see soon, okay? Of course, as always, we'll keep you informed. Well, one thing I always recommend is to sort of hide everything. Really see what has influenced me. So for example, have holidays influenced us? Well, we see that there are occasional peaks here, but not much. We wouldn't say that the influence has really had an effect on us, because there are occasional peaks there, but not much. In 2001, for example, the average temperature has influenced us a lot. Watch out. Here, it has really had a big impact, as we can see. The influence we have here has affected us a lot. Or the maximum temperature. We also see that the maximum temperature, especially coincidentally, look, we're here between August and September. Around mid to early August, it doesn't get much hotter. And coincidentally, in this case, we see that this hasn't influenced us much. Just like we see here. This case, well, when it's colder, it doesn't influence as much. Or the minimum temperature doesn't influence. If we look here, there's one thing I haven't mentioned. Notice here, that this goes up to 6,500 and the minimum temperature goes down to 3,000. If you want to see a perspective where both are visible, we compare the maximum and the minimum, and we see that the minimum temperature is actually more important in this case, influencing us at 3,000, rather than the maximum, which seemed like a lot, but we only see this one, and it actually has much more influence. Or if it rains, have the precipitation influenced us? Well, yes, but notice that the minimum temperatures are by far more relevant. Even the wind has barely influenced us. Watch out for seasonality. In 2001, seasonality significantly influenced us, especially from March to September. It's a good time to focus investments here, as seasonality positively impacts us. High temperatures influence us, but low temperatures have a greater impact. Seasonality negatively affects us, notably on January 23rd, with a huge impact. In this case, we do see that it influences us a lot, so it would be a good time to focus our investments in this area, since seasonality positively influences us. So, look here. At the conclusion we can draw to wrap up the video. If there's a high temperature, it influences us, yes, but if it's low, it influences us even more. And if we look at seasonality, we do see that it negatively influences us a lot, especially on January 23rd. It has a huge impact, okay? Is there something that, well, we don't have 124, but it looks like it could repeat in January too? That's going down, let's say in this case, okay? And so, we know that it seems like seasonality influences us positively from around March to almost September, mid-August, which would be a good time for us to make our investments in this case. Here we see that the average temperature also influences us in this case, but I would stick above all with this fairly clear conclusion, and that here we see information that we could not have with any other tool. So, well, with this, we close this conclusion. We hope you enjoyed seeing this little example. We'll keep making little snippets like we've been doing. And as always, thank you so much for your support. 1,000.